Hey everyone and welcome to Storytime. My name is Jake and today we are going to be looking at the subreddit r/prorevenge, where people tell us their best stories on when they got revenge on someone or something they didn't like. If you're new around here, please do hit subscribe down below so that you never miss out on another video. But for now, let's sit back, relax and enjoy some pro-revenge stories. My contractor was cheap, so I made sure to get my money's worth. So this is actually what happened between my father and the contractor who built his house, or my childhood home. In the year 2000, my parents and their two young children, ages 7 and 5, that's me, were looking to move into a house big enough for a family of 4, and that they could stay in for a very long time. They found a newly constructed street in a quiet neighborhood in a town known for being family friendly. It was perfect. There were only 4 available lots, so my mother chose the one she liked best. Now, the houses on these lots were still under construction, so they were mostly just framing at this point. So my parents decided to contact the contractor, let's call him Alfred, and see if they could have any input into the design, as they had already set up a mortgage agreement on the property. Alfred agreed, but didn't let them do too much, which wasn't all that bad. My parents were pretty busy trying to sell their old house anyway. A few months go by, and the house is finally ready to be moved into. My parents are thrilled. They finally have their family home. We move in and everything's great. For about 36 hours. On literal day 2, the furnace in the basement breaks and spews smoke throughout the whole house, setting off the smoke detectors. The police and fire department show up, investigate, and tell us that we can return in 72 hours. So we stay in a nearby hotel for 3 days. Everything is great again, until we start noticing a bunch of small details that Alfred seemed to have overlooked. My dad hires a home inspector to look at the house. The inspector finds numerous faults that could cost thousands to fix. My dad is angry. So my dad, being the calm yet stern person he is, and I love him for it, decides to get some help in paying these repairs to his 7-month-old house. You see, Alfred had been the contractor for 4 houses on the street, of which only one, ours, had been bought. So, my dad went to the bank and expressed interest in the other lots. He asked that a $1,000 lien be placed on each one. This was all legal. Alfred found out and was rightfully angry. He couldn't sell these lots because of the liens. He asked my dad to remove them. My dad agreed and said he would, if Alfred paid for the repairs. Alfred refused to pay, so my dad refused to lift the liens. Alfred then sues my parents. My parents countersue. The court rules in favor of my parents. My dad had to lift his liens, but Alfred, he had to pay my parents $50,000 instead of paying the $2,000 to $3,000 for repairs. And a home inspector looked at the other 3 lots and made him pay for any repairs on them. Ooh, that's a bit of a hefty tax to pay if you cut corners, I guess. $50,000. Steal a phone number from our store? We'll take your car instead. So this wasn't me, but happened at one of the retail cell phone stores I manage a few hours ago. We put our demo phones for customers to play with. The funny thing about these phones is that they are locked, cannot be used, and have no real value. From time to time, a dumb thief will come into the stores and take one of these phones. Today was one of those times. This particular store is usually slow, so having 1 or 2 employees working at a time is normal. Today, one was at lunch, so only 1 employee was in the store. In walks 2 guys. One is engaging with the employee asking questions, acting like an interested buyer. The second is looking at the demo phones, but in reality is taking it off the security stand. The employee notices the guy has removed the demo phone from the security device and turns to look at him. The thief makes a run towards the door, and unbelievably, the employee tackles the thief. The two roll around, exchanging blows outside the door. It was a completely crazy scene. The good part about all this is that the thief got away with the phone, but in the process of wrestling with the employee, dropped his car keys out of his pocket. The employee picked up the car keys and went inside the store, locked the door, and called the police. To keep a longer story short, the cops came and towed the thief's 2016 Honda Accord. So he got a playphone that is as good as worthless, and lost a good car. Also, the cops were easily able to identify the thief and put a warrant out for his arrest. Yeah, I agree that the thief is pretty stupid for stealing a fake phone, but I also think that employee that tackled him over a fake phone is also pretty stupid. Like, it's good to be the hero and everything, but he's risking his life for this stupid thief who's getting a fake phone. It's not worth it. Attack me? Get ready for doom. I have had migraines since I was 3 or 4. Sometimes they start slow, and sometimes they hit like a hammer. I can be instantly unable to function if they hit quickly. In college, this could be a huge problem. The only available medications just knocked you out, so you didn't care that you hurt and wanted to vomit. My freshman year, in 1987, I was at a party for my roommate's boyfriend's birthday. I had never had champagne and didn't know it was a migraine trigger. I took a sip or two of champagne and instantly got a migraine. We were at someone's house about 20 minutes away from the dorm. My roommate didn't want to leave the party, so she arranged for a guy she knew to drive me home. She had no idea what he was really like, she just knew him from a few parties. On the drive that I thought was to my dorm, this guy pulls over on the side of the road in an undeveloped area. No one was around. He did things to me and left me on the side of the road. I didn't even know where I was, much less how to get back to the dorm or to a hospital. After a while, some lady found me curled up on the side of the road. She thought I was a goner. Cell phones were not a thing, so she half lifted me into her car, wrote down where she found me, and drove me to the nearest hospital. I could barely speak enough to tell the hospital people my name. I was turned black and blue by this guy. The hospital knocked me out for about 8 hours with pain meds and muscle relaxers, once they were sure I didn't have a head injury. He only hit me in places that it would not show. My roommate didn't get home until about a day after I did. She was staying at her boyfriend's dorm room. She probably wouldn't have come as early as she did, but her parents called at the same time every weekend, and she had to be home for that. She was shocked when she saw how beat up I looked. I asked her how she knew that guy, and learned she didn't really. He was just at a party now and then. I wasn't happy with the situation, or that she let some creep she barely knew drive me somewhere. She felt really guilty, but guys don't like to advertise that they do that to girls. She did have some information on the guy. He didn't live in our city, but instead went to a really Christian school with a great law school. He was in law school and was visiting for the party. His dad was a really well-known lawyer for a televangelist's church. That was the beginning of what I learned about him. Remember, the internet was in its infancy and social media did not exist. I called some other people who knew him from the party and got some information from them. I learned his girlfriend's name, then I went to the library and learned about this girlfriend, the church, the law school, the college he was at, etc. I had photos from the hospital. I had declined to press charges because even then I knew that it would be hard to prove. Even with all the bruises, it would be my word against his. He was from a good family and went to a Christian college and law school. My family was not prominent, and I was wearing a miniskirt that night. At the time, it was normal for lawyers to smear victims based on what they wore, if they had a drink, especially if they were under 21, etc. I didn't want to have to deal with all of that. I just wanted to ruin his life without having it ruin mine. I got phone numbers from the dean of his law school, the head of the college overall, for his father, for his girlfriend, and for the person who owned his apartment complex. He lived in some fancy apartment owned by a guy who was a big donor to the college. It was for people getting masters or law degrees or medical degrees after they already had bachelor degrees. The apartments were given out as a type of scholarship to the school, and they were supposed to be really nice. I never went there, so I don't know firsthand what they are like, but I heard about them from this guy's friends. I wrote some letters, including tear stains that made some of the writing blur a bit. I included copies of the photos of my bruises. I said that I didn't want to press charges because I knew it would be an embarrassment to the college/law school/televangelist/his parents, whichever one fit the person I was writing to. I just thought they ought to know because he could harm a member of their family/congregation/school. He could also be a huge publicity nightmare if he did this to someone else, and I didn't want that because I believed in their message, sent to the church and the school. I called the girlfriend, her number was in the phone book, and told her that her boyfriend had done stuff to me. She cried and said he had done that to her too, but she thought it was her fault. I told her what he did was not my fault, I was trying not to puke when he attacked me. I told her to stop seeing him and to have nothing to do with him if he treated her that way. She said that her family would be upset as he was from such a good family and he was so well thought of at the law school. I didn't tell her that I was working on ruining that for him. I sat back and waited for things to happen after I mailed the letters. His family was shocked but not surprised. They wrote me an apology, saying he had been in trouble before, but they thought he had gotten better after the church intervened in his life. Apparently, he hadn't, and they were cutting ties to him. The man who owned the apartments actually called me. He wanted to hear what happened from me, so he could figure out if I was telling the truth. So I told him what happened and why I didn't press charges. He believed me and started eviction proceedings. A representative from the church called me to ask me to stop telling lies about the guy. I told them that they shouldn't protect this sort of person. To ask girls he dated how he behaved because his girlfriend told me that he had done stuff to her when he got angry. They were shocked. I never heard from the college, but the dean of the law school called me. He asked if I told the truth, and I assured him that I had. DNA wasn't commonly used. It was first used in a criminal case that year, so it was my word versus his word. Just the accusation was enough to have the guy kicked out of law school, especially with the photos of my bruises and the tear stains on my letters, which was the reason I wrote them out by hand and let myself cry while I wrote them. Apparently those accepted to the law school should be above reproach. I don't know if they would have handled it the same way if I tried to prosecute the guy, but since I was trying to keep it quiet so I didn't harm the school's reputation, it meant I was a good Christian girl who could be believed. I was actually surprised that the letters had so much success. I expected his father to send a letter telling me to stop slandering and libeling his son. The letter saying they were cutting all ties to him was a surprise, but a good one. Sadly, it indicated that I was probably not the first to accuse him. About a year later, I found out he was working for a company installing carpet in homes. I called that company and told them that they were sending an awful person into people's homes. I even offered to send photos of the bruises if they wanted them. The woman that I spoke to was horrified. Just the idea that he had been accused of doing such things, and that I cared enough to call when I learned he was going into people's homes, was enough for her. I learned that not only did the company fire him, they called other companies and told them what a liability he would be if they hired him. He had started to drink heavily by that point, at least according to the friends who knew him at my school. I went on with my life, got therapy to help me cope, eventually got married, and have had almost 30 years with an amazing husband. I don't know what happened to this guy, but I know he never became a lawyer, his dream. I know that I made his life a lot harder. I did Google him a few years ago. He has had many arrests and has spent quite a few years behind bars. I like to think that by getting him kicked out of law school and getting his family to understand that he was very much unreformed, I helped speed him into the defendant's chair in a courtroom. That revenge was so much better than what would have happened if she just took him to court, because I was thinking, oh, this guy's dad's a really famous lawyer, he's gonna have so much money to just be able to throw it under the carpet, no pun intended. But I'm glad she's doing well, and that was a really good story. Hey everyone, I hope you all had a really good day and that you enjoyed that video. If you want to check out some other videos, then click on screen right now, or check out the playlist down below. If you enjoyed that video, then please do leave a like, and if you want to submit your own stories, then you can do so by joining the Discord in the top link in the description. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon.